The Holocaust Memorial Services are being held in many localities, and it's something to keep with us in the days ahead. One such person to shed some light of that is Anna Gersher, and she's our guest today. So, Anna, thank you for making time for us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself before we get into your story. Who is Anna, and how did she come to be in Saskatoon?
All right, thank you. If you haven't noticed yet, I do have an accent, and often enough people ask me about it, and I say, I live in Saskatoon, and then I get this look. Where are you from? So I was born in the former Soviet Union, in the country that is currently called Moldova. So the native population speaks Moldavian, which is similar to Romanian, on the border with Ukraine. And just to give you a little perspective, in the region that is very famous by Count Dracula. So I come from that area. So that adds a little extra spice to a conversation.
Tell us a little bit about your family experience and how that led to the memorialization of the Holocaust services.
Well, myself, my husband, and our eldest daughter came to Saskatoon in 1981. And we came when the Soviet Union was still Soviet Union, and we came as economic refugees. Now, my parents and my grandparents on both sides of the family are Holocaust survivors. All of them are not alive any longer. So with the memorial services across the world, Holocaust Memorial Services, I really felt compelled for quite a few years now to tell their story, the story of their experience. And this past November, my father passed away, so that even made even more an impact on me personally.
Yeah.
So what I really feel that it's essential and important at this day, at the time that we're living and hearing all these horrific stories all over the world, the experience of my people, my family, really comes to light. And their suffering, we need to hear it. It's not to say that I'm asking for forgiveness of people that hurt, or for people that I'm not saying, oh, feel sorry for them. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying, please open your eyes, listen, look around. Don't dismiss it if it's not about you, because it could happen to you.
It's very hard to imagine that, being in a peaceful country like Canada and everything is more or less fine, but it's a little bit of a different experience, as I've heard you say about, with your parents and the bullets flying around.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience that you grew up with their stories?
Yes, well, both my parents were, my father was 12 at the time of the Second World War in 1941, and my mother was 13. So they were young, they were children. They didn't live in the same city, so you would think they might have a different experience. However, they didn't, because their families were gathered together with other Jewish families and moved into a segregated streets that were only allocated for Jews, and that's where the ghetto was. So my father was quite, he told me the stories that he was small for his age. So that gave him an advantage to crawl under the fences or over the fences, sneak out and find food, because that was the major thing. No one really brought food for them.
So it was more of a story of survival just in that time. In terms of sharing that story, you've spoken at the Roxy Theatre and shared a lot of your own experiences. What is that message that you want to come through to the people watching?
Well, the message is be vigilant. Pay attention. Don't dismiss things that a particular group is targeted. Don't pretend that it's not about you. It could easily be about you. So realize those, stand up, speak, don't be quiet, and pay attention, listen to people. It's not to scare, it's not to say, well, another Hitler is coming to Canada. But things are different now, and if we read the news or even listen to the news, we could recognize, especially the families that went through experiences of discrimination of any sort, religious or ethnic or cultural, whatever it is. Listen, pay attention, and step forward.
If we look back in history, and one always thinks that we should learn from mistakes of years gone by, what is one thing that you, based on your own experience growing up with Holocaust survivors as parents, what are some things that we can take forward from those experiences from your mom and dad?
Well, living with my parents and seeing them every day interacting and dismissing or walking past the hardships and embracing everything that's in front of them, the love, the joy, the dances, the family, the grandchildren, Baba and Deda, all that stuff. It takes a strong person to do that, and that's what I'm hoping for anyone who ever experience any discrimination, to look around, to enjoy what you have, and work with what the past, leave the past there, but not forget.
I think that's a good point to touch on, because there are some that say that this never happened, and others are trying to keep that memory alive. How do you get that message across from your own experiences growing up with your mom and dad, and the fact that they went through so many troubled times, not just for a few months, but years, persecution? What types of stories can you relate to that happened to them that we see today?
Well, we don't have to go too far. I mean, in our backyards there's quite a lot of different examples, but the easier one to use, it's another country, right?
Sure.
Because it hurts when you talk about your own. So we, things that happened with the new government in the United States, the idea of not allowing 6 countries, choosing the countries and the people of those countries not to come to travel to the States, or the horrific event that happened in Quebec, the killing of 6 Muslim men just because they were different. They are different. We are all different. So that rings a bell for me. I really find that those stories need to be told over and over. We cannot just forget about them.
We don't want a repeat of history,
Definitely
I think is
not.
what your message seems to be. If we look at what happened with a lot of the Jewish population, what are some 1 or 2 stories you can share with us that your mom and dad went through that was kind of a turning point for them, that they escaped with their lives?
Well, I guess my father was much more talkative about the time. My mom really kept things to herself. But my father would tell stories, especially in his later years when he got dementia. So that's all he would talk about, how he lived through 1941 to 1944 in the ghetto and what he did. And I guess I can't really pinpoint what was the turning point, but there's some stories that kind of funny, where he would tell that event that he went to steal some food because and ended up in the orchard and went up to the tree to get some plums because his father loved a particular kind of plum. And so he stuffed his shirt full of plums, and as he was trying to come down, the woman that orchard belonged to was under the tree. And so she said in Ukrainian, "Хлопчик, що ти робиш?" And my father said, I was so scared that I didn't know what to say. And she said, don't worry, just calm down, you could take this. And he said he was overwhelmed, so he let his hands go and fell right flat. But then she didn't do anything. Of course, he was scared. So he got his plums back, crawled over, and ran away. So stories like that were, I think it helped to survive.
I think that the message that you're bringing, it needs to stay at the front of the conversation, and many people are talking about that in the city. What would you like to leave people with that they can continue to recognize and memorialize the Holocaust as we know it?
Don't say, I've heard it before. Listen again. There's a story, it's a personal story. There is a person attached to that story. Pay respect, listen, and hear, and pass it around. Tell others. Invite people to come. It's okay to debate. It's okay to not agree as long as we're able to have a conversation. It's okay to be uncomfortable. I feel it's okay. As long as we could talk about it and not repeat it.
And I want to thank you so much for sharing your message with us, and we look forward to seeing you more in the future.
Thank you so much for asking me to come.
Perfect. We'll be right back.